So it's streaming, it's recording, and then you also have a PowerPoint. All right.
So
I'm very intrigued by this utilization of live streaming on YouTube while we do the presentation in Zoom. I feel a little behind the curve. I didn't realize people were really doing that because I've just usually do the Zoom meeting or webinar, but I think I did the Cal Parents session yesterday and they did that. And I was like, I really like that format.
It does afford a couple little layers of security and, you know, but we'll see if we can get everything to all work together. So we do have our live stream going. I'm waiting to get a confirmation from a colleague. Yep, looks like we're there. So we can, by my watch, we've got a couple minutes before the live start. So are you all seeing the Cal Week opening slide?
Yes.
Yes.
Well,
Excellent. And if anyone would like to jump in, you know, I'll be going through some initial things, but I want to make sure that we save the majority of our time for the panel, you know, student panel. So I'll be covering some things, but as I'm covering it, if you'd like to add in any additional information, please know you're welcome to.
Ron, is that your dog?
Yeah, that's.
That wants to be a part of the meeting.
he may force himself in. Yeah. You gotta love the pug.
Yes, you do. Is he as feisty as Luna?
You know, he's pretty mellow. He's pretty
Okay.
mellow. Unless someone's coming up the stairs or making a delivery, then he's, you know, he's got to be alert that way.
Okay.
Well, folks, it looks like we are at noon. So why don't we dive in? Very pleased to be live streaming to you on our YouTube channel, folks. Congratulations to all of our newly admitted reentry students. We got to wave the woohoo, got to wave the Cal flag. Congratulations to you. Glad that you're joining us. This session that we're doing is providing some strategies and next steps for students who are 25 and older. So as we're getting started, I wanted to make sure that you're get a chance to meet our excellent team of panelists. So maybe we can do a quick introduction. Tien, do you want to kick things off for us?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So my name is Tien. So I was born and raised in Vietnam, and my family and we came to the US like about 6 years ago. So I'm pretty I guess, fresh to the country, but I've been experiencing a lot of like a lot of great communities and a lot of support. So I'm a senior and I'm gonna graduate this spring 2020. Crossing fingers. And my major is psychology, and I'm currently a peer advisor for the Reentry Student Center.
Okay, I'll go. My name is Trin, everyone, and I'm from Fremont, California. That's one of the many Bay Area cities I've ever lived in. I guess right out of high school, I just started working for years and years and years, decided to get my foot back in the door of school. Attended Laney College, and then got into Cal. Upon getting into Cal, I got involved with the reentry community as an intern at the moment. Currently organizing the social media platforms, so follow Reentry Berkeley if you have a chance. And I'm studying cognitive science, graduating this spring of 2020, hopefully as well.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kat. I grew up in Castro Valley, California, which is also in the Bay Area. And out of high school, I started working similar to Trin. I never actually thought I would get to go to college. But then I ended up at community college and now I'm at UC Berkeley. I'm graduating this summer, so August 2020, with a bachelor's in psychology. And I help facilitate the ALS meetings, which are for older, wiser learners to help build a community here at UC Berkeley.
All right, I guess, and so my name is Shua Howard. I'm an assistant director in the Office of Undergraduate Admissions at UC Berkeley. Been in the office for about 10 years now. And so I may be one of the individuals that you all work with while you are working through fulfilling your conditions of admissions. I am one of those individuals who you'll be working with through that process. And so look forward to hopefully offering some good advice today.
Excellent. And so finally, I'm Ron Williams. I'm the director of our Centers for Educational Equity and Excellence, that's CE3, our independent student programs. So I'll kind of define a couple things there. So CE3 is, again, Centers for Educational Equity and Excellence. It's a collection of about 14 programs that are designed to empower and serve historically marginalized communities on our UC Berkeley campus. So by historically marginalized, we mean, say for instance, transfer students, first generation college students, undocumented students, formerly incarcerated students, parenting students, reentry students, current and former foster youth, military affiliated. So you get the idea. A lot of these student communities are within our Centers for Educational Equity and Excellence. And I'm specifically responsible for our collection of independent student programs, and there are 4 of those, that there's a lot of intersectionality among, not only all of our CE3 programs, but particularly within our independent student programs that include the Berkeley Hope Scholars that serves current and former foster youth, the Cal Veteran Services Center that serves any military affiliated folks, certainly veterans, but also dependents of veterans as well. The reentry student program, so folks generally speaking who are 25 years of age and older, and our student parent center that serves our community of students who are combining their academics along with parenting while being a Berkeley student. So those are our independent student programs, and I'm happy to be here to kind of offer some insights and guide the process. First thing I wanted to do was to share with you a little bit about the pathways, the way that our reentry student community, that folks come to us here at Berkeley. It won't surprise probably most of you, and that you likely in fact share this, that the majority of our reentry students come to Berkeley, as you heard from Tien and Trin and Kat, come to us as transfer students. And that happened to be a little bit further along in life, right? But we do also have a small but formidable community of reentry students who are admitted as first-year students. So these are folks who would have been UC eligible at the time of graduation, but chose to maybe go off and work, do a startup, do any number of things, start a family, care for their family, and then later in life will apply to Berkeley and actually begin as a first-year student. And then the third community of folks are folks who would either begin as first year or transfer. And then after they get to Berkeley, life happens. And that could mean any number of things. They may need to press pause on their academic career so that they can work to support their family, deal with a health concern, any number of different things that may come up that would cause someone to press pause on their Berkeley academic career. And then they will later on in life circle back to complete their Berkeley degree. So within this spectrum, I understand that this year our most seasoned reentry student is actually at the modest age of 49. But in the past, I've had the honor of being able to work with students who've come back to complete their degree here at Berkeley at the age of, the most seasoned student was 84 when she came back to complete her degree in you would have to guess, of all things, it was in history that she earned her degree. So, just a really great spectrum of folks that are part of our community that is roughly around 1,700 undergraduates. The majority of graduate students are 25 and older. So we're really, for this kind of metric, we're looking at the undergraduate community. So 1,700, which sounds like a lot. But when you consider that Berkeley has, from year to year, anywhere from 28 to 30,000 undergraduate students, that calculates out to being only about 5 to 7% of our undergraduate community. So this is something that for a lot of folks is going to feel very different from where perhaps you've been studying. If you in fact have been at a California or other community college, you may be used to being in a strong community and seeing a lot of other reentry students in your courses. You'll find reentry students here at Berkeley, but you may feel the community as being a little bit different and more emphasis or overrepresented in terms of traditional age students. So that's something to kind of be aware of. That doesn't make it a bad thing, but it's just something to recognize that there's an adjustment, a difference there. And I'm sure that Tien and Trin and Kat will have some insights to offer on that. Our reentry student community are also students who are very highly prized and valued among faculty and GSIs. And the reason for that is you as reentry students, because you come to the university having kind of pressed pause on a number of other things, you're very, very invested in your academic experience. So that tends to mean that reentry students sit in the first row of classes. That tends to mean that when a question gets answered, reentry students are the first to have the hands shooting up. That's noticed. Faculty really, there are a number of key faculty on campus that so appreciate having that kind of energy and investment in the classroom. And so you're known, you're appreciated and valued. Not only because of how invested you are, but because of the enhanced life and professional skills that you bring to campus as well. A lot of students, traditionally we think of folks going to colleges and universities and being shaped by that college experience. And that does happen at Berkeley. Berkeley is transformative, and you're already bringing life skills and enhanced professional skills that may not be something that the average bear, yes, I'm going to use that pun, that the average bear may possess. So that's one of the many ways that you enrich the community here at Berkeley. Additionally, and I'm sure that my colleague Jua would be able to offer some insights on this too. When we think of students in the reentry student community, we think of folks who there were, generally speaking, sometimes barriers that prevented folks from being able to engage in higher education earlier in life. Mm-hmm. So whether those were systemic and societal barriers, whether that was socioeconomic, whether, documentation status, any number of things, those are all part of the reason why you as reentry students are so compelling when it comes to being admitted as a Berkeley student. Now, that doesn't mean that if you're a reentry student, it's an automatic admission. That's not it. But you are particularly compelling because of the life experience and complexity that you bring. And we also recognize that those compelling circumstances that make you, stand out from a lot of other traditional age applicants, those complexities we recognize don't go away magically once you get admitted to Berkeley. It's not poof, okay, now everything's good. That we recognize that there are ways by which folks in the reentry student community have to navigate the university in different ways because of these complexities. And that's why the reentry student program exists. That's why our Centers for Educational Equity and Excellence exist, and a number of our key partners throughout campus to be able to make sure that folks are not feeling that they have to shoulder these burdens and tackle all this stuff alone, even though you're capable of doing that, but being able to work to on the academic stuff and gain some assistance from other folks and strategies for being able to make this opportunity work to your benefit. Jump quickly now to financial aid, because financial aid, we know historically, and just expenses in general are some concerns that it would be rare for someone to come to Berkeley and feel like, no, I'm good, I'm all right. Most of the time, folks in our community are very interested, especially after gaining admission, to learn what this all looks like. So as an independent student, and I say independent because whenever you're either 24 years of age or older, or if you're married, if you're a ward of the court or former foster youth, if you're a military veteran, these are all capacities by which and experiences by which financial aid considers you independent. So certainly being 25 years of age and older, automatically you're considered independent and no longer connected to your family income. This is different in contrast with traditional age students who may not only be working themselves and may have their tax information that they have to provide on the free application for federal student aid, the FAFSA, but also their family income is taken into account as well. The only time family income would be considered for reentry students would be if you have a partner or spouse. If you're married, filing jointly, that kind of thing, then that's where family income, if your partner or spouse is bringing in considerable income to your family, then that would have an impact on your estimated family contribution and quite possibly your student contribution. So the first opportunity that's relevant to this community, to our community of reentry students, is, as you see there at the top of the screen, the student contribution appeal. So you know that when you complete the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, they require you to report on tax information from 2 years ago. 2 years ago could be a very different reality to your present reality of being a newly admitted Berkeley student and hopefully gearing up to work either minimally or not at all in your first semester, at least, to be able to give yourself the best footing and strongest pathway forward strategically. We recognize that some folks have to work, and we get that. But the more you can try and limit that so that you can more fully engage in your Berkeley experience, the better. But since your age for this coming academic year is based on your income from 2 years ago, if you were working 2 years ago and had a pretty even modest or substantial income, and you're no longer going to have that as a full-time Berkeley student, if your income is going down, then this is an opportunity to reach out to folks here in the reentry student program. We can guide you through this. This isn't something that is available to you just yet. All of these appeals are things that will be available to you in the not too distant future. But you can reach out to us and we can guide you on the student contribution appeal process. This is a way to document for our colleagues here in the Berkeley Financial Aid Office to document what your current financial income reality is if you're earning less. That would be a way to qualify for additional gift aid. So that's super impactful if you find that you're earning less than when you were two years ago and you have a substantive student contribution or estimated family contribution. So we can talk more in the future about that. The cost of attendance adjustment request is another opportunity for folks whose expenses are greater than the standard cost of attendance. I mentioned before that I had the opportunity of assisting a student in the past who was 84 years of age. The reality is that when you are admitted as a Berkeley student, for the purposes of financial aid and the cost of attendance, there's a standard cost of attendance that it doesn't matter if you're 12 years old. Believe it or not, we've had transfer students who've come in at the age of 12 as junior transfers. So it doesn't matter if you're 12 years old or you're 84 years old, everyone at least initially gets the same kind of cookie cutter budget. And if you've had an opportunity to see your aid offer already, For some folks, it can look like, wow, that's a huge number. That's what I have to pay? No, the Berkeley cost of attendance not only includes registration fees, but it also includes things like the estimated amount that Berkeley expects folks to need to pay for housing, for books, for transportation, for food, and all sorts of different things. So that is the overall cost of attendance. So when you have expenses that are greater than the standard cost of attendance, that's when you can submit this cost of attendance adjustment request that would take your standard cost of attendance and expand it so that you can either make space for additional loan opportunities or additional outside scholarships or departmental awards. So it's a great way, if especially, you know, we know that a lot of times first year students or junior transfers and reentry students will often be bringing scholarships with them either from their community college or campus that they've been attending, their communities that they're engaged with, or you know, other foundations, especially in their first year. So know that this cost of attendance adjustment process will be a way for you in the future to be able to account for additional things like the additional cost for rent. For folks who are living off campus, for instance, this past year, it changes from year to year, but this past year, the standard amount for folks living off campus was about $1,100 a month. And I tell you, if you can find an apartment for $1,100 a month, you are, wow, you're good. Because cost of living in the Bay Area is, yeah, it's a challenge. So I know we'll be talking a little bit more about housing in the future, and our peer advisors will be able to offer some insights there as well. But know that in addition to the cost of a personal computer, the additional cost for travel, for childcare expenses, these are all examples of things that you can document on the cost of attendance. In addition, you know, if you need glasses, you have to do you know, any kind of medical and dental expenses that aren't covered by the student health insurance program that's automatically included for students. Those are all expenses that you can document to increase the overall size of your cost of attendance, again, to either create more space for loans or outside scholarships and departmental awards on campus. And speaking of one of those scholarships, a very important one that is specifically designed for all of you who've just been admitted is through our reentry student program. We have the Crankstart Reentry Scholarship Program. We've been able to secure this grant funding from the Crankstart Foundation, where we are able to support 10 newly admitted reentry students at the amount of $5,000 for the academic year. And the way that this award is different, not only that it's specifically aimed at all of you who are newly admitted reentry students, but for a lot of folks in the reentry, well, just in general, scholarships tend to be the case that you apply now and would be awarded for next academic year. That's not the case for this award. The scholarship deadline will be sometime late September. You will apply by then and will be awarded this same academic year. So that $5,000 is available to 10 of you who are newly admitted reentry students. So I wanted to make sure to particularly highlight that. And know that there are other opportunities available. If you look at the website scholarships.berkeley.edu, there are a number of high-profile scholarships available that you would think, oh, this is Berkeley. Those high-profile scholarships, there must be like hundreds and thousands of people who are applying for those. No, it doesn't happen. Sometimes there are very small numbers of folks who are willing to go through the effort of applying. So I would very much encourage you to consider that, along with work study, as we talked about before. On housing, Cal Housing. So these are folks that provide housing resources on campus that are generally considered the residence halls. So the dorms, as some would say at Berkeley, we call them residence halls. There are apartments that are available too. And then there's family housing. So the University Village is also there. I know that our panelists will have some thoughts about housing. I know Tien in particular, until recently was in a residence hall And so there's some good perspectives for, and actually maybe I'll open up here for Tien, Trin, Kat. Do you anything to point out on the Cal housing side? I know that some of you are also renting in the community as well.
Yeah, so like for me that I during the 2 years that I was in Berkeley, I've been living in like the dorm until like before everything happened. But with the residence halls, I feel like, so first of all, one of the good thing about residence hall is that basically it's on campus, so it's really close. And so you literally can just like walk to class, and if you have like breaks in between and things like that, you're free to go back and just like having a break or something like that. And you literally don't really have to take care of like cleaning or like, you know, like cooking for yourself. So there's dining halls for you to go to for like a good 12 meals a week basically, and then some extra money for you to swipe in. And then so they have like the staff to help clean up and everything. So your sole thing to when you're being there is basically just to study. So you don't really have to worry much about other things. But at the same time, it depends on like whether you're in a double or a triple, like, or like whether either you're in a residence hall or like apartments on campus. So the price can vary. I might be on like a little of a higher range where I was in a double, and so it's quite high. It can get to like around roughly like 2,000 a month and things like that. So you might want to consider like the expense of that. But if you have a good financial aid package, the amount of out-of-pocket expense that you put out, it might not be that bad, but you might have to juggle alongside with some other expenses. I know that for me, when I was like, I actually waived my insurance, like my health insurance in Berkeley, because I knew that I didn't really use, I kept it in the first year, but then the second year I didn't really use it much. So I waived it, and it changed a lot in the out-of-pocket expenses that I paid out for it. So those are like some of the things that you can actually twist a little bit. If you want convenience, but at the same time don't want to pay a lot. So consider different kind of on-campus. It's actually pretty nice. I enjoyed it. But at the same time, you're going to be living with like freshmen or like, you know, like younger age students. And it depends on the dynamics on the floor. If they're really close together, you're going to have a lot of noise all the time. It's a good and a bad thing. But if the floor, they're not really close to each other, then it's actually, you have a lot more quiet and things like that. But those are things to consider.
Yeah, Tien, I'm so glad that you not only talked about the cost, but also the prospect of living with more traditional age students. So any additional thoughts on that? How has that worked for you? Being a reentry student, living in a res hall, has that been good? Has that been a real challenge for you? What would you say to that?
Yeah, I have a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. But for that one, I think particularly to me, and the first time I got there, it was difficult because also I was not born here. So getting into like a really intimate setting of living with not just traditional age students, but at the same time, I was exposed to so many different culture. So it was hard for me at the beginning. But I think one of the good side of it is when you were applying for a residence hall, you were filling out like some kind of like a survey on like, you know, all of your personal information and like your time of sleeping and all those things. And I think they kind of paired me up at that time according to that. So I was lucky to be in the same room with my roommate who is also a transfer student, a re-entry student. She's like only 1 year younger than me. And we have like the same pattern of everything. So it was a really good arrangement between me and her. And like even the room next door, there were one re-entry student and 2 other transfer students as well. So it was a good kind of setting, but like the rest of the floor were traditional age students. And it was hard for me to get along at first, and also at the same time the noise, and they have a quiet hours at 11 p.m. but they don't have a sense of time, like, like when to cut off their excitement and things like that. And I love them, to be honest. Like, they're the best groups and I'm still keeping in touch with them, but it can be challenging if I try to study, and I sleep way earlier than they do. So that can be a challenge.
Yeah, I'm so glad to hear too that it was a good experience. But yeah, I know that historically we've had some reentry students who've been placed in Res Hall, at least initially, with a first year admit. And so it was a very, I'm thinking of gentlemen in particular who were placed with, a reentry student gentleman who was placed with a first year, and it was not nearly the same kind of fit that you described. But yeah, but given the proximity, that everything is all included, you get Wi-Fi access, really easy access to campus, food is included in all that, all utilities. So, even though it on the surface may appear more expensive, when you consider all of that, I think it actually is a really good value, so long as what you're describing, the kind of interpersonal dynamics, are something that can work for you.
Yeah, I was lucky. Like, I feel like it was a good experience for me.
And Kat and Trin, any additional things to add on the housing scene?
Yeah.
We can talk about this later as well. But.
No, so I live off campus, and I had actually moved to Berkeley 4 years before I thought I was going to go to college. So I am the master tenant on my 2-bedroom apartment, and I rent to students. I find them through the UC Berkeley off-campus housing Facebook page. And I tend to rent to international students because they're only here for a short period of time. And they tend to be a little bit older, like they're working on their PhD and they're visiting here doing some research. So if that is an option for you, like you want to be the master tenant, or if you want to share a room or share a room in a house with somebody, really think about what is important to you. So what's important to me is my sleep schedule. So I always ask them, are they early birds? Are they late birds? Like what type of habits they have, and don't be in a hurry to find a place. It's really nice that you'll have all summer to look for a place, hopefully, and take the time, do virtual meetings, have them do a virtual tour, and ask all the questions like what is included, is the first or last month prorated? Why is there like this amount of a deposit? Like, don't be afraid to ask those questions.
So going off what Kat was saying, I live off campus as well. And depending on what you want, you should shoot for that, definitely. Like for me, when I hear about others that live close to campus or on campus, it sounds like they have the full Cal experience. Throughout my 2 years at Cal, I'll hear people talk about People's Park. I've never known where People's Park is just because I'm not near campus at all. But I just learned, of course, this semester where it was. It's right there where I drive past every day. But I would say if you have a car and if you don't want to share a restroom, live off campus. You find sweet deals. That was my thing. I did not want to share a restroom because I've been fortunate enough to find my own place with my own restroom. So, after having that, you don't want to go back to sharing. So, I opted out on campus housing just to have that privacy, I would say, and more control over my environment. It helped me, I would say, succeed in my academic journey at Cal. So, but the thing is that I didn't get that full Cal experience. So depending on what you want, you should kind of weigh out the pros and cons to each situation or each option that you have. Yeah. And there are good deals that you can find on Craigslist.
Definitely. I so appreciate each of you highlighting the you may not have used this language, but basically the non-negotiables, the things that you know you have to have in order to not only maintain your own health and wellness and state of mind, but to also, as you mentioned, put yourself in the best position to do your best academic work. You know, your living space absolutely has a lot to do with how well you're able to perform and engage in everything here. So yeah, love the thinking. I suspect we'll be coming back to this, especially as folks begin texting in questions. I wanted to also touch on the Berkeley Student Cooperative. So we've been talking about either apartments and on-campus opportunities. The Berkeley Student Cooperative, or the co-ops as they're often referred to, are a kind of a hybrid of the two. So, and what I mean by that is the Berkeley Student Cooperative, or the co-ops, are a collection of buildings in the Berkeley community that are rooms are rented to students. They don't have to be UC Berkeley students. It can be any student living here in the East Bay. That they're able to keep costs down and keep them highly manageable, because it's expected that folks who live there will contribute to the overall operations of the house. So for cleaning or for cooking, a lot of the co-ops have food that's included as well, similar to a residence hall. So food and Wi-Fi and utilities and everything are all included, but not nearly at the same level of expense as you would find at a residence hall. So Tien mentioned, some, depending on the placement, in Cal Housing or in the residence halls, can be, in the neighborhood of about 2,000. The co-ops, generally speaking, can be anywhere from, say, 800 to 1,100 or so, or 1,200. So the co-ops tend to be far more cost effective. But again, living in that kind of, they're large homes, so it's not like it's a 3-bedroom home and you've got 20 people living in there. It's not like that. The two that I would recommend in particular for folks to consider, and you can even just do a search, Google search for Berkeley Student Cooperative, or BSC is their website. But the two that I would encourage you to look at, or at least consider, are the Convent and the Hillegas Parker House. The reason that I would highlight these for you is that some of the co-ops have a bit of a reputation as party houses, or as being, kind of loud, or maybe not as clean. But the Convent and the Hillegas Parker House, in order to live there, you have to be, at least as an undergraduate, you would have to be of reentry age, so 25 or older, or a grad student, or a postdoctoral fellow. And so what that means is, when folks are, a little bit older, or grad students or postdocs, the place tends to be a little cleaner and a little quieter and a little more academically focused. And so those tend to be a really good option to consider for folks in our reentry student community. So sometimes there can be a bit of a wait list. So it is something to consider. And as you've already heard from folks, certainly there are options in the East Bay and throughout the Bay Area in terms of rental opportunities, whether you're looking on Craigslist or the Facebook group that Kat mentioned as well. So now is an opportunity for folks who are viewing the live stream. We invite you to text your questions. We had a couple questions ahead of time that I made certain to share with our panelists. Our voices of experience here from our reentry student community. But if you have additional questions that are occurring to you, please text them. We just set up this number for this specific purpose. Text them to 510-447-5148. So while those are coming in, I wonder, Trin, Tien, Kat, what are some things that you know now that you wish you would have known when you were making your decision as to whether or not you were going to accept your offer of admission to Berkeley, or as you were beginning?
Berkeley definitely, or before choosing Berkeley, I didn't know that Berkeley had the CE3 program, which dedicates to taking care of, underrepresented communities. And that's something that I learned while being there that I wish I knew before. I mean, I honestly, I didn't wish I knew before. I was going to choose Berkeley anyways, but this was something that if I was on the fence, then I wish I would have known that to make my decision to go with Berkeley easier, I would say. They definitely have a bunch of programs that are specifically certain populations. I would say, like the student parent program, reentry, the veteran center. So just populations like that are taken care of. And there are a variety of resources that you have access to make your, I would say, your time at Cal easier to do your job as a student.
Yeah, I agree with Trin. Even though I heard that Berkeley had like a really large, like very diverse population, but I didn't realize that that also means that like the needs of all of these backgrounds has been taken care of and supported because of this focus as well. And that also means that there are like the scholarships that Ron mentioned earlier, like there are literally like too many. There's so many, just like to every different, any kind of backgrounds that you can think of. So like I didn't really know that, but like I really think that that is like one of the resources that it would help ease me down with like my little anxiety of like how expensive it is to be in the Bay and everything like that. But also like one additional thing that I heard, I already knew that Berkeley was a research university. But at the same time, because I'm pretty new to the country, and I like research is not something that I was very familiar with. So I didn't really understand what that meant until I got in. And then I realized that like it is a really big focus, like the whole focus of the university. So like if you're coming in and then you can expect with certain major would be quite heavy on theory and things like that. So that is one of the things to kind of like thinking about as well. I came in, didn't think about doing any kind of research, but then after a while, like, I was really attracted into that route. Like you definitely don't have to do research if you don't think that's your route, but that is how some of the curriculum and the major can be built around it as well.
Yeah, I agree with Tien on the research and the theory. We are full of that here at UC Berkeley. I only wanted to go to Cal. I only applied to Cal, and that's because I grew up in the Bay Area and this is my dream. However, if you are deciding between two schools, I would definitely take a look at the class academic guide and see what classes are offered and when. There were a few classes that I really wanted to take that have just not been offered since I've been here. And also when looking at the guide, pay attention to the workload and the hours that they suggested per week, because that is not an exaggeration. You will be using those hours. They always tell you, oh, UC Berkeley is very challenging. It's a lot harder than community college. And I knew that. I was hoping for that, but you don't really know how hard it is until you get here. And I wish I had taken those, that course load, the hours that they suggested more seriously my first semester.
I thank you for going there, Kat, in terms of the workload. I'll put it back to you for an additional question, thinking more about workload. Of course, it's going to be different for each person, depending on what they're studying, depending on the campus from which they're transferring. But can you three say more about a comparison and contrast between the academic load, the number of units that you took at your prior campus before coming to Berkeley, and the number of units that you take here, and the overall workload and the demands and everything? I mean, obviously we know that anyone who gains admission to Berkeley, no one falls in love with the sound of your social security number you know, you've earned your place here. And we know that Berkeley is a little bit different than some places. So if you three might kind of expand on that a little bit, please.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about, so in community college, I was working full time. I was also a part-time statistics tutor, and I was taking 17 units a semester. That was what I was able to handle at community college. And so when I got into Cal, they suggested only taking 13 units my first semester. And I was just like, oh, I'll be fine. I can take 17 units because I won't be working and I won't be tutoring anymore. And I was wrong. So I ended up dropping one of the classes. I had to change 2 of my classes to no pass, and I took a C in the only class that I kept a grade in. So my first semester I was at a 2.0, but that's okay. I learned a lot of lessons. I got a hold of a lot of different resources and I made it through. But yeah, so really take the suggestion, just ease into Cal, start with that 13 units. And you can still be an overachiever by the end of it, just maybe not your first semester.
Yeah, so go on that, just like Kat, I guess in community college, I was actually working 3 jobs at one point, and going to school full time. And I still got, really good grades. And I mean, of course it took effort, but not as much effort as when I got into Cal. So right when I got into Cal, I was working 2 jobs, enrolled into 13 units. And my first semester, I was ready to give up. I quit one of my jobs. I ended up quitting both jobs at the end of the semester, but I quit one in the beginning because it was just getting too overwhelming. So I wanted to focus on, my academic work at Cal. I gave it my all my first semester. I took advantage of office hours. I made sure I talked to people right next to me that was willing to help me. I had questions all the time, basically just take advantage of all the help that I can get. And even that wasn't enough for me because I still wasn't doing as well on my tests as I thought I could have been doing, I guess, putting in all the effort. But at the end of the semester, I guess I learned to not be too harsh on myself and kind of ease out, but at the same time put in effort. And I was able to strive through that and get over my imposter syndrome because I thought, going through that dip, I just thought they got the wrong Trin Nguyen. I don't think I was supposed to be here. But at the end of the semester, when I got my results, I was like, okay, actually they probably got the right Trin Nguyen. So it was a journey the first semester. It's definitely not the same. Community college is definitely more like, I would say, linear learning, where it's like the professor tells you what to remember, tells you, okay, remember this will be on the test. Rather, Cal, they throw all this information at you, and it's more like a conceptual abstract learning where you have to really get the whole picture. So it's definitely different styles of learning and teaching at a community versus at Cal, I would say. So that's something I had to kind of transition myself to adapt to, I would say.
Yeah, so like my experience are not very different from Kat and Chin. So like during community college, like I worked 2 jobs and I volunteered and I went to school full time. I think it was around, my normal unit was around 15 to 16 units. And I, like, through all of that, I still have some time during the weekend for social time. But then like when I first came to a transfer to Cal, I already kind of knew that it would be very difficult. So I left, I came in and decided not to have any work yet, like in the first semester, just to settle myself in. And I was glad that I did it because like I couldn't really see myself doing anything else other than just school at that time. It's not just because of the workload, but at the same time, the structure are very different from community college. Like when I was in community college, we didn't really have like office hours or like sections. Like with psychology, basically we have like a really big like a really big classroom, like 200 and 300 people. And that's why we have to have like different discussion sections, chopping up for like smaller groups. So that would be like extra time for a section, which means extra time for, you know, assignments and like, you know, like office hours of either professor, like both professor and the GSI. So like the time and the effort spent for one class is multiplied, and it's not just going to class and go home and do homework for just one class. So I definitely underestimated the amount of time that I had to spend on it, like Kat said. And at the same time, it was also the workload is more because once you're at Cal, you really do want to immerse in the entire experience. So you want to, you know, like having other activities and like, because that's gonna build in, especially if you come in as a reentry student with life experience already, you know that classes and books are not the only thing that you need. You need life experience, like you need like the experience that you can get you a better job, like once you get out and things like that. So that, and a lot of those can be unpaid. So, and it built into like, you know, all the stuff that you have to do. So I didn't even work for the first entire year when I was at Cal. And I'm glad that I did it, because it would have been much more challenging for me without, with any kind of work aside.
Yeah.
But yeah, oh sorry, but like I just like add one more thing. It's kind of like what Trin said, that it's important to get in touch with professor and having a study group, and then, you know, like getting those help from people around you, because you definitely, there are a lot of classes that are not built for you to succeed by yourself. You have to work with other people to be able to get a good grade in it.
Definitely. All right, thank you all. I think we're going to shift now a little bit to not quite a lightning round, but the technology is behaving. So we're getting a lot of great questions in from folks who are viewing the live stream. So I wonder if we'll kind of not zip through these, but I want to make sure that we can cover as many as we can and still we have 10 minutes left, and I want to make sure that we make certain to get to next steps with Jua with regard to admissions. So we'll carve out at least a few minutes for that. So if we can have maybe one reply to these questions. So the first question is, how do you find older students that need a roommate? Someone with a good suggestion there?
So I find older students, I use the Facebook page, the UC Berkeley Off-Campus Housing. There's a couple different Facebook pages for off-campus housing. This one I have found the majority of older students on.
Excellent. And I know Facebook is kind of, you know, it's got its problems, but for this kind of access to information, it's particularly helpful. So thank you for that, Kat. The next question is, can we receive advising from the Reentry Center prior to admission if we have questions? The answer is yes. If you email reentry@berkeley.edu, you can visit us on our website, reentry.berkeley.edu. There's opportunity to connect there. We are also on Facebook. So, and as you heard from Trin, you can follow us there and ask questions there as well.
Oh yeah, that's facebook.com/Cal Reentry.
And then Instagram is Reentry Berkeley.
Excellent. Another question maybe one of you can handle is, are there specific areas on campus for study, extracurricular participation, or community engagement that are specifically or primarily for reentry students?
Oh, yes. So you can definitely find the reentry staff, or I would say peer advisors, working or hanging out at the, it's the reentry student program space, I would say. It's located in B North. It's in the basement area of MLK. So that space is new. It was built specifically to for the reentry community, I would say, to study, to hang out, to meet others. And that's where the OWLS meetings are held at as well. OWLS means Older Wiser Learners, and those are held weekly, specific, like I said, again, specifically for the reentry community. So if if you do decide to go to Cal, you can definitely find students who are 25 and older in that specific area.
Excellent, excellent. And, you know, that space, it's a great space. And, you know, under normal circumstances, when we can access campus, it's a great space. Right now, we're challenged with our current pandemic. So as you know, so many things are online. So our OWL sessions are taking place even now, and you're welcome to join us for those. Those are taking place on Zoom, through Zoom. So if you go to our Reentry Student Program Facebook page, as you've heard about, the information for the OWL sessions on Zoom are available there too. How about another question? I would like to know how financial aid works for living both on campus and off campus. Does the school deposit money into your bank account every month or at the beginning of the year to pay rent, food, and other personal expenses?
For that, I can only say for on-campus housing, but like basically when you apply to the on-campus, if you have the financial aid already, then basically they're gonna pay for you upfront, like for the housing basically. And so like it's gonna be divided into like two different times for the 2 semester. Basically it cover just the 2 main semester of fall and spring. And toward the end of each semester, they're gonna let you know the out-of-pocket expense that you're gonna have to pay. It depends on your own package and your own like the family contribution. But that's how it works for me. So I just have to pay for the application, and then at the end of each semester, I'll pay the amount that I have to pay extra. The rest is covered by financial aid.
Yes, and then living off campus, I get all of my funding that is not going towards the school in one lump sum 10 days before the semester starts. And so I can get all my books and I just save it so I'm able to pay bills and rent throughout the semester.
And the best way to get the fastest access to those funds would be to set up an electronic funds transfer or EFT with the university. The university will just send that directly to your personal bank account, and then you're able to make all those payments and arrangements as folks have noted. A few more questions here and maybe I'll handle this one. With parent housing, what would that process look like? Is it a lottery, or are you able to choose a certain unit preferences? Briefly, it's a kind of a hybrid of both, I would say. When you apply for the village, you're able to specify what you're ideally looking for, but what you're ideally looking for may or may not be available. So housing will make you an offer. Sometimes if someone is looking for a 1-bedroom place, those are pretty rare. So you may find that you're offered something that's larger than what you were really ideally looking for. So it might be a little bit more expensive. But if you're needing to be in the University Village and family housing, I would encourage you to think seriously about accepting that, even if it's more maybe than what you need, because the cost of housing there in University Village, because it is subsidized, it is far less than living out in the community. And for all of its challenges, because, you know, Berkeley has its challenges, it is a really good landlord. This is to say, if you're ever late on rent, or you are having issues with your financial aid and are needing to you know, have some conversations with folks, you're going to have a lot more flexibility with the university as your landlord, arguably, than you would with someone out in the community. Another question is, how easy was it to build community or a support system coming in as a transfer student?
Well, as a transfer student, I would go to transfer center because, you know, that was the community that I identified with. However, I still felt left out, you know, being an older student. So I found out about the reentry community. So within the reentry community, I would say I built I built a more like natural support system in the reentry community, just because there's more of like a mutual understanding there of like life experiences and current experiences. So it was easy for me. Like when I met Kat and Tian, we built a really strong foundation of friendship, and we would vent to each other about issues or like just life things in general. So that was a great support system to build, and I couldn't find that at all at the transfer center. Not to talk bad about them at all. They're great. I would definitely recommend going to the transfer center for any resources that they offer. But I just couldn't identify myself with the transfer community
And
more
then
than I identify myself with the community.
sorry,
I
Trim, I didn't mean to cut you off there. The 198 transition class was really helpful for me. I was a spring admin, and so it was a smaller class. There was only like 10 of us, but it was extremely helpful just to meet a few people my own age. And I thought, because I lived in Berkeley already, that I already had a community, but you really do need a Cal community. You need people who understand what you're going through. Even if you have friends who've been to Cal in the past, or people who've been to college in general, college is always changing, your experience is always changing, and you need people who are in the present moment with you to really understand what you're going through.
Yeah, absolutely. And the only other thing that I would add on this before we shift to the next thing is that, don't feel that you need to be only engaging with one community. As Trin even mentioned, the transfer center, it's a great place. Go to, as you're able to, even on these virtual sessions, find the folks that you think you're able to resonate with, that communicate in a way that makes sense to you, and follow up with those folks. Don't feel like you have to be any one thing, because you're not a monolithic human being. You've got a number of intersectional experiences. You're a transfer student, you're a reentry student, you may be a student parent, you may be a first generation college student, or historically underrepresented ethnically, or you name it. Go to all of these spaces and find the ones that you feel work for you, and make that happen. Don't feel that anyone is going to think, oh, well, why is that person going there and not to us? No, go where you feel best served. We are running short on time. I wonder if folks, if you have questions that we weren't able to get to, please email us at reentry@berkeley.edu, or engage with us on Facebook. We'll be glad to follow up with you and look forward to doing that. I want to make sure that we've got some time for Jua to talk about next steps with admissions, because we're very much hoping that you all feel compelled by leaning toward accepting the offer of admission. But please, Jua, if you would.
All right, thank you so much. So next steps for you all, first and foremost, as you're signing on to your My Application portal, or MAP at Berkeley, which is a lot of times what you'll see when we email you guys, please take some time and really read through your conditions of admission thoroughly. We receive a lot of questions from you all. We love to hear from you, but a lot of those questions are typically answered in your conditions of admissions. Generally, in addition, there's an FAQ attached to your condition of admission that also answers a lot of questions. So please take your time, read through your conditions of admission thoroughly. Also understanding if you may have been admitted for the spring term versus the fall term. I'm getting a lot of questions regarding that. You may not know that if you don't read through your conditions thoroughly. You definitely need to make sure that you're clear on that. So definitely read through them. Check, as you said, kind of confirm everything so that you're clear about what we're asking of you through the Office of Undergraduate Admissions. When you all are communicating with us, we know you have a lot of questions about a lot of various things, from housing to financial aid and so forth. We are only tasked with working with you regarding your conditions of admission. So please, when we're communicating, that's what we're going to talk to you about, not other topics like housing or financial aid and so forth. So please make sure that you all are reaching out to the respective offices and departments for those type of questions. Conditions of admissions. Now, please, when it comes to any type of issue that may be related to you not meeting a condition of admission, whether it be your GPA dropped over this last spring term, it may be due to COVID-19, it may be to familial obligations. It could be a lot of different reasons. But if there's anything that has affected your performance this last term, you had to drop a course that you may have reported on your application, anything, please make sure that you go into the map at Berkeley and fill out an admissions update form. Do not email your admissions officer, because that admissions officer is going to tell you to fill out an admissions update form. I try to make it simple for all of us. I want to make sure that you guys are able to reach us in the best way. So please fill out an admissions update form. Please be thorough in telling us what the issue is. If you need to upload any supplemental documents to support your case, do that. Give us as much information as possible so that we can review and understand the situation before we make any type of determination. So please make sure you take full advantage of the admissions update form if you need to. Finally, to accept your offer of admissions, there are going to be a few, as Ron said a little earlier, that may be freshmen, reentry students. From our freshmen, you have until May 1st to submit your intent to register and pay your deposit. For my transfer admits, you guys have until June 1st to submit your intent to register and pay your deposit. For any of you all who may have been waitlisted, if you are a freshman, you've already missed that window. The deadline was April 15th. So, but if you were waitlisted as a freshman and you did opt into the waitlist, we will notify you of a final decision by the early part of June. You will know something soon. We're not going to go all the way through the summer before letting you know something. For my transfer students who may have been waitlisted, you have until May 15th to opt into the waitlist, and also will probably mid-June, you will know a final decision regarding if we have admitted you from the waitlist. So once again, those are kind of the key things, but take some time, read your conditions of admissions. And if at the end of the day, you are still, you just don't know, please reach out to your admissions officer. We definitely want to hear from you and make sure that we are helping you as best possible so that you're making the best decision for yourself and you feel confident and comfortable with making the decision to join the UC Berkeley community. And go Bears.
Absolutely. Go Bears. I am going to make sure that we all get on screen here. Definitely go Bears. Thank you, Kat, Tien, Trin, Jua. Really appreciate all of your insights. Thank you, all of you who joined us on the YouTube live stream. We have another session coming up on Thursday from 5 to 6. So thank you again. And yeah, congratulations on your admission.
Yeah.
Go Bears.
Go Bears. Congratulations, guys.
Congratulations.